She sees everything around me, but she's totally blind. That's the image of the philosopher.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Bonjour. We are going to speak in English because it's going to be easier for the translation. So just in terms of pragmatics, those who don't understand English, you can still pick up some headsets. Same for people that are watching online. You can switch the languages. Don't know exactly why, but I'm sure you will find. Welcome to this 53rd edition of Vision du Réel. We are very proud, honored, happy, excited.
It's a party.
Excited about Kirsten Johnson being with us today. Thanks a lot, Kirsten Johnson. Kirsten Johnson, as you all hopefully know, is a very important, essential name in the American and international cinema, in particular regarding nonfiction. As a director of photography, as a director, as a filmmaker, we are very happy to be having this discussion with her today. The masterclass will be moderated mainly by Aure, Marsais, who is a member of the selection committee. And it will be happening in two different moments. There will be a first moment where we will try to, dig, look around her life and her work and try and understand how things have been happening, build a basis for what's coming afterward, which is going to be adventurous and exciting, which will be her taking control of this masterclass and interacting a lot with you guys. So please stick to this masterclass till the very end, because there will be, again, two different moments. Thanks a lot, Kirsten, for being with us. I would like to kindly ask you, before we start, to stand up and give her a proper applause.
That's for Emily also.
Thanks a lot. Aurélien.
Welcome, Kirsten. Great to have you with us. I'll try to introduce briefly your work, so stop me if I'm wrong, or please feel free to add anything. Kirsten, you've directed or co-directed 4 feature-length films and 2 short films. Your 2 latest feature-length films have both premiered at Sundance Film Festival and have met international recognition. Last one was Camera Person, and Dick Johnson is Dead. This is for the closest times in history. You are also renowned for your work as a major documentary cinematographer, or camera person, as you coined it. You've contributed to over 60 films, of which Derrida by Kirby Dick and Amy Diering-Hoffman, which is screened here at the festival. Pray the Devil Back to Hell, Fahrenheit 9/11 by Michael Moore, Laura Poitras' trilogy on U.S. post 9/11 War on Terror. Here we're screening The Oath. All these films have known international recognition. So covering your work both as director and as a cinematographer, it is clear that you are constantly questioning the ethical challenges and the possibilities of documentary camera work and of being a camera person. We talked about 2 weeks ago, we were introducing ourselves to each other, and you told me that there was a small excerpt of your work in Mike Mills' last film, which is Come On, Come On. which came out in 2021. So that was just a few months ago. And in this film, there's an excerpt of a text you wrote, which, if I'm not mistaken, is from the press notes of Camera Person, and he used that in his film. And it's I think, a great introduction to how you think your work and how you think being a camera person and how you think cinema in general. So can we please see excerpt 1? It's an excerpt from Come On by Mike Mills, starring Joaquin Phoenix.
And I will just verify for everything you said was right.
Thank you.
I ask for trust, cooperation, and permission without knowing where the experience will lead the subject. I can and will leave a place, a situation, a problem, but the people I interview cannot. The work offers the interviewer access and a reason to stay in worlds not my own. Complete distraction from my own life. A sense of invincibility, a sense of invisibility. I traffic in hope without the ability to know what will happen in the future. The work offers the subjects a chance to speak of things they have never spoken of, a chance to see themselves as subjects worthy of time and attention. The work offers the subjects the creation of an image of self, the distribution of which they cannot control, on a global scale, in perpetuity.
In and out.
I think it's of course a wonderful way to start, and actually that's where probably we're gonna end. But maybe before we get to that, would be lovely to kind of like rewind a little bit and start with how maybe you fall into image, at what point you fall into images, because there is a very singular story in your case. So maybe you can tell us a bit about how it all starts before we get there.
Well, I just want to acknowledge that we're all here physically together. And, it means a great deal to me that this festival would dedicate so much time and attention to this work. And so I really acknowledge both of you and then the entire technical crew. And for everyone in the audience, there's a projectionist named Christian. There's a camera person named Farah. There's a camera person named Tanguy. There's a camera person named Daniel. There's a photographer named Adrian. And there's a graphic designer in the audience, 2 graphic designers in the audience, Joanna and Vincent. And then there are all of you. And then there's all of the technical crew. There are the people backstage who are translating. And what I often find upsetting with cinema is that we forget to acknowledge all of the people it takes to make these moments together. And I sort of learned that through being a camera person. But I'm sort of very interested in why we want to erase all of this effort, because there's something extraordinarily beautiful. At this point you're exhausted, but the fact that all of these humans collectively, there are probably 25 people at work right now helping us all be here. But then there are the people who made the trailer. It just goes on, the sort of number of people. So I'm always interested in, why do we want to reduce it to one? And I'm very glad to be the one today, but I'm throwing it back out to the collectivity to say that, like, we are making this moment today with each other. So that's yeah, baby, right? We're here, and also, like, we can relax. This is important. What's important is we're together. What doesn't matter is if we make any mistakes. Mistake making is what is necessary for this work, and I think that's what's taken me a long time in my work to understand, is the mistake making is what it is. The contradiction is what it is. So I love this quote because I feel like it holds all of these contradictions of the work. But certainly when I started, I imagined I was going to be a director, right? Because I think that's what we all attach to cinema is like, I'm going to make a film like that big film out there. And then in the process of attempting to become, you discover that you love all of these things along the way. You love the work, you love the camera, you love talking with the driver in the car, you love getting on a plane and going somewhere, you love going to the movies. So that sort of multiplicity, I think I started to have a glimpse of it, I would say like 10 years after I started, where in the beginning I was like looking way ahead of myself as opposed to being in the present. So I'm much more about like being in the present right now, like Adrian, on the move. See, this is the kind of thing, like I said when we started, I want to move. This is the thing of being a camera person. It gives you permission, right? So Adrienne see, I'm already gone rogue. They're like, what happened? But Adrienne can be down here, right? And so can I. And that suddenly all of the hierarchy of who has power here shifts, right? And that's what I'm sort of interested in. And everyone was like, stay in the light, right? What happens if I go into the dark and you stay in the light? What's the thing that shifts? So that's what I'm sort of interested in, is activating it all, because that's what I've learned through doing camera work, is that you have permission to go and be the audience, not to stay on the stage. But I'll come back.
Very kind of you.
I won't leave you all alone. I won't leave you all alone.
Too much. So rather not coming back to you know, like you're going to Africa, or, you know, telling that part of the story and maybe how it informed you as a person and, you know, like your later work, or would you like to discuss that as well?
Yeah. So I love it. So great. When I first started talking with the projectionist, he was like, we should have discussed all of this before. And I said, well, even if we had discussed all of it before, I still would have done something different, right? And I feel like this is what life is. So Christian or whoever is controlling the screen, can we switch to my computer for a moment? Is it possible? Because what I'm going to show you, first I'm going to show you my password. I'm going to start with that. It's going to be great. You're all going to get into all of my material. Let's see if it works. Now, under pressure, it'll never work. See, this is how it goes. So I just wanted to show you my relationship to color.
Oh, wait, it's not on screen.
It's coming.
Est-ce qu'on peut mettre l'ordinateur de Kirsten connecté sur l'écran, s'il vous plaît?
Is it there? It's coming. It's coming. Everyone, if you can imagine the color orange, imagine my favorite color. And Christian's like, see, I told her she should have told me this was going to happen. And this is what happens when you're a camera person. Nothing goes the way you think it's going to go. And people like Christian are in this terrible position of being like, no, don't do this to me. You're revealing that I don't know how to do my job, right? When in fact, it's me who's doing my job differently, or life that is doing the job differently. And suddenly you, as the person there with the camera, or you, the director, have to adapt. And so the panic, Christian and I already talked about this. I told him he can't panic. But the feeling that one has as a camera person is this like, oh, I'm going to ruin everything. I'm going to miss everything. It's not going to be all right. And then you have to do that like 700 times a day, which, as you know, as a festival director, that's what you also have to do. You have to live through the horror of like, everything was supposed to be perfect. We had everything ready. And then Kirsten fell off the stage and broke her leg, right? And so this thing of not knowing what's going to happen is basically what we're all doing. Ah, yeah, baby. Yes, yes.
We're gonna introduce them all one
Yeah.
after the
I
other.
think he tracked the cable from up there until here, so now he's here. And
So
thank you so
this is
much.
beautiful. Another human revealed, right? Another human who's living through the moment of, does it work? We're all doing that together. So I just want to acknowledge, like, one of the things of making Dick Johnson is Dead is when I started making the film, I was like, if I die, I was an if I dyer. How many in the audience are an if I dyer? Right? If you're young enough or old enough, you're an if I dyer. You're right. I'm not doing it. I've just decided it's no good. I'm not doing it. The rest of us have like a vague awareness, and then some of us have been faced with death, like right in our faces, in our own bodies or the bodies of people really close to us. And so we know not just terrible things can happen, the worst thing can happen in a moment. This is not the worst thing. There being no images on the screen is not the worst thing, but someone suddenly dying is the worst thing. And it happens and will happen to all of us, right? So the kinds of things that I'm talking about in this work of camera work, I believe them to be life and death in the same way that each of our lives is life and death, right? So I like when I work and when I film when things are a little out of control, but I've come to understand that everyone around me has different relationships to their tolerance for things being out of control, right? We each have different relationships to that. How nervous or uncomfortable does it make us feel? He's back. How nervous are you? Maybe it's my computer. It's definitely my computer. Yeah. He's switching it on and off.
Maybe check it.
Was it my computer?
Merci.
It was totally my computer. It was totally my computer. No, So I just want to show you. So this is like a drawing that I made when I was, I think like 5, right? And if you see what I'm wearing, I'm basically this person, right? And have always been. And I would say like the origin story of me being a camera person is like the earliest we can track it is I came home from daycare at age 2 or 3 and said, no, go back. No, go back. And my parents were terrified and asked me why, what's happening. And they were really worried something terrible was happening to me there. And finally what they got out of me was no pictures on wall. No, go back. There was nothing to look at, right? So I just want to take you through some images. These are these incredible libraries that Yinka Shonibari has in London, right? Of all these covered books. And this is the kind of thing that just like, thrills me to see this much color. And it was that way when I saw the first films of Ousmane Sembène and Djibril Diop Mambéty when I was in college, and I was like, who's making things with color, right? Who's making things that like are full of orange? Look, there I am. I'm literally exactly the same person I have always been, right? Nothing has changed. So I did this little drawing this morning. Where I tried to find this graph, I tried to figure out this graph, right? So you need bodies, a camera to make images. It's this weird little Venn diagram. Bodies are alive, but they can and will die. Images may or may not be immortal, depending on what you do with your hard drives, right? And a camera is not alive, but it takes the intersection of all of these things, right, to make it work. And so I would say, in addition to color, I've been obsessed with death throughout my work, which I would say like any good human is obsessed with death. Yeah. Okay, so that's my answer to your question.
Wow. And you draw this at your breakfast table. This is what you think about in the morning.
No, I drew that in the middle of the night in my bed because I was trying to figure out how do I say this in a way that makes sense to people. I'm trying to get this across. And this is a drawing by Saul Steinberg, who's one of my favorite artists. And I would like to make movies as effective as that, right? So what is that? Is that documentary? Is that fiction? Is that imagination? Is that the past? Is that future? Is that death? It's all of it, which is sort of like the Mike Mills moment in Come On, Come On. It's like allow all the contradiction in, basically. They're like, where do we go with our notes? Where do we go?
Well, no, I'm wondering how can we like make you still, tell us a little bit about. I'm wondering if I should keep trying or if
keep trying. Keep trying.
Okay.
What do you want to know?
Well, because I think that now you're here, you know, but before you arrived here in this very, wise and kind of like almost definite position, like you're standing in a very clear. I'm very jealous of you knowing, like feeling confident about what you're looking for, what you're interested in. That's how
This is like totally you're projecting all of this onto me, but right on. Okay. Well,
I'm participating as well.
Great.
Still, before you get here, I'm interested to know, like, how you get here.
Yeah.
So I would be a little interested also for people that might have skipped some
the last 30 years of my life,
for instance.
Yes.
I would still be interested in, like understanding how, like a film like Deadline, like, this early works of yours kind of like make you understand, either like actually this is very interesting. This is a building moment in my career, but, kind of like how it informs you as a being, as a director, as a camera person, how like it kind of pushes you.
Well, I mean, so what I would say, and I would say this is true for any one of us, we have like an extensive list, whether we write it down or not, of things we care about. That includes people, and that includes like huge issues. We care about poverty, right? I really cared about racism my entire life because I went to a school that was very challenged by racism, let us say, in the early 70s, meaning there was a lot of racism. And there were people coming from many different backgrounds, and we were kids and we were trying to navigate the racism and we didn't know how. And so in some ways, I would say I continue to spend my life trying to figure out like what was going on? Why was racism necessary? So that's one thing on my list, racism, right? But then I was like, okay, colonialism in Africa. Oh, the history of apartheid in South Africa. And then the list got longer, right? So I'm maintaining these lists of things I care about that don't make sense to me, that I wish they were different, things that inspire me. So those lists are moving forward. So when I think about like films I love or books I love or art I love, I think I have the experience, I have multiple experiences. I'm like, oh, look at that. I wish I made it. How did they make it? What did that take? Why did they make that? Right? So, and I think that's true for most of us. And some of us will immediately beat ourselves up about like, oh, I could never make music. I'm not even going to think I could have made a piece of music, but I could have made that painting, right? And that feeling, I think I felt very much in many forms early on because I came from this religious world where there were only certain answers to things and there was limitations. But the world of art and the world of music and the world of movies was like, wow, dream worlds. And I was really curious, like, how did people get there? So that was the wish, like, how could I get there? So just to say that very early, I would say in college, I was already thinking, I want to go to Brazil. I want to go to West Africa. I want to go to Paris and see what African directors are doing in Paris. I want to go to London and see what Afro-Caribbean directors are doing, because I was obsessed with these sort of questions in my childhood. And then 20 years later, I had been to all those places, met those people, learned some of those languages. And I think when I was 20, I thought I could do it all in like a year. And then sort of, 15 years later, I'm in Brazil and I realized like, oh, you've got to learn Portuguese to speak to someone, So it's, you slow down your understanding of what's possible when. But there are threads in my work that you've really been wonderful about picking up. But, there's a thread of paying attention to American, the history of American anti-Blackness, for example, the history of American white supremacy. I've been paying attention to that my whole life. Unfortunately, it's not over, right? There's still plenty to look at and think about. So that's a thread. The color orange is a thread, right? I would say my own relationship to my parents is a thread, and hence my own relationship to femaleness. I would say I didn't even pay attention to my femaleness for a really long time, which I then realized is like part of what the trick of femaleness is. You're like, oh, everyone's just happy to see me. Right? For the first 30 years, it's just like, oh, people are just happy to see you. And you think it's because of your brain. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute. Nobody wants me to be their boss. Wait a minute. Nobody wants to give me any money. They just want to see me. And it takes you a really long time to figure it out, especially if you're like absurdly tall and people are like, whoa, what's that? Right? So you're like a distraction for people for the first 20 years of your life, and you think people are like, want to talk to you, right? You're like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. So I would say it was like when I was in Rwanda 10 years after the genocide, working with Ginny Rediker, whose family was Catholic and whose mother had 11 children. And Ginny didn't know much about the history of Rwanda, but every single woman she sat down and talked to, they were talking as if they knew each other. And I was like, what's going on? Ginny doesn't know anything about the history of Rwanda. She's studied a little bit about the genocide. How can she, why does she relate to everyone? And then she's like, well, all these women are like my mother. Like they can't control how many children they have. They can't control whether their children live or die. And I was like, oh, right? So which then takes me into a new zone where I start to think of like a maternity ward in Nigeria, like a war zone, right?
Yeah.
So it's like these threads, right? That just keep knitting, I would say. Yeah.
There's, we're not going to follow our thread. We're going to follow Kirsten's thread, I
Definitely
think.
not going to follow anything.
Good luck.
There's-
Good
Go
luck
with
with
the
the
flow
thread.
now.
Although we picked out a few extracts which were meant to be chronological in Kirsten's work, but we're not going to do that. And what arouses as you're speaking is you have such a curiosity for things, for people, and for people especially. And what seems to have guided you all your life is being in empathy and also being curious to follow, where will this person lead me? Let's go check, where he's going, and maybe I'll discover a new world, new paradigms, and also and being there and staying there. There's, if you don't mind, I like to show actually the extract, the very beginning of Camera Person, which is, I believe, quite symbolic of this, of you finding someone and, oh,
Yes.
I'll follow you.
Yeah.
Take me somewhere. Take me in a new world. Yeah. So we're gonna, for Christian, or maybe
Yeah,
in
we're
the
gonna
back,
try
Audrey.
to switch from my computer to the screen. Yes,
Audrey,
it's
we're
happening.
going to play extracts. extract 4. It's an extract from Camera Person. It's the very beginning of the film.
You see? Yeah, it's pretty. See that yellow flower? Some amazing wildflowers here. You see? Ah. She don't know what to think. Dobra, da. Dobra. I'll come with you a little.
Hi. Hi. Oh. That's me, Martin. Honey. Hi.
There's a mind and a curiosity, but there's also, ooh, no, not yet, or maybe never. This one. There's not only curiosity, your curiosity, but there's also a body in motion. That's what you express in your cinema. And the little graphic you did, the little diagram you did this night tonight, is really shows that a body, a camera, and what was the other thing?
A body, camera, And images.
And
right?
images.
Right. That were like, what's happening to those images? Are they pixelated? Are they disappearing?
Yeah.
Right?
Sorry for
Right?
the quality.
Yeah. Right. But that's the thing. Images aren't stable either. Just like bodies aren't stable.
Mm.
And that was a great idea to show that opening. And that opening, it's like, I can't tell you how hard it was for me to get to accepting that opening. That opening holds almost everything. And yet I was so ashamed of that opening in the beginning because the first shot is an out of focus shot of dirt, right? That's moving, bad camera work, bad Kirsten, right? And here I am, I'm going to make a film about being a camera person, about 25 years of my life as a cinematographer. And the first shot is going to be an out of focus shot of dirt. And I can tell you, Nels Bangerter, the extraordinary editor of this film, can testify. I kept being like, don't you want like a beautiful shot of some balloons at the beginning of the movie? It'll be really great if we put a lot of color there, right? And getting to this was in some ways was accepting that I am in my body, that my body is present. And I think this is literally the work of each of us as humans. Like, I love all the stuff you're projecting onto me, but turns out you are standing up, leading a festival in a moment of crises that is incredibly difficult to navigate, both on a health level, but also on a political level and an aesthetic level. You're actually doing that. And people look at you and they see that in you. And then you're looking over here saying, wow, you've really got yourself together, right? But it's really hard to integrate all the critical stuff, the what I could have done differently, how's this going, that kind of thing that you have to do when you're filming. But, and also look at all the joy. I was like, oh my goodness, the sheep are staring at me, right? Look at this man. He's, like, he thinks I'm hilarious. And part of that comes when you're a camera person, you are a creature, right? You can't see it right now. Farrah's over there sitting down, but she's half machine, half her, right? And right now she's got her hand on the lens and she's zooming in on me because I just changed position, right? And so that Farrah can see me differently than the rest of you can see me. How close up or wide am I, Farrah? What's the size of my frame?
Est-ce qu'elle est en plan serré ou en plan large?
Both.
She
It was
has to
a
come
two-shot,
There's
right?
the two of us.
And now suddenly she can get tighter. Look, I can get tighter too. I move and I can see you. We can make eye contact, right? That lens could make eye contact for me way back there. But look, it's dangerous. I really literally could fall and hurt myself right here if I don't pay attention. So this weird thing that you're doing when you're doing camera work is you're getting all like interested in other people, in their body language, how they're sitting. And then, but you also have to remember you're a body. You could just fall right down there and die. Literally. Probably not going to happen. But so that work of what's this image I'm seeing? How close do I have to get to be able to do that shot, right? You're doing that. So you're thinking into the future, to the image. I want a close up on this lovely hand and this face, right? But my body is uncomfortable staying in this position. And is everyone looking at me? Turns out you're all looking at me, right? How long can I hold this? How long do I stay here? Well, it turns out he's doing something really interesting. So I have to stay for hours right here, right? But I can't hold this position. So, gotta stand up, right? So that kind of back and forth between the difference between your own body, other people's bodies, and the image, that is like this constantly shifting thing that it took me a really long time to understand that I was a part of it, basically, I would say.
But like, so your body is basically becoming a sort of a tool, even if you realize, like that it's not a tool, because I think that use the word tool for you is probably the worst word I could use. What I'm wondering is,
Tool does mean someone who's not very smart in English.
so what I'm wondering in that specific case, because I think that camera person is like actually like an essential film in general, because it's asking so many questions about, again, like this position of being a camera person, and also all the ethics. We will talk a lot about that. We have to, of filming reality, and and up to what point. What I'm interested in is the editing, because of course, like if the editing is wrong, it becomes a useless catalog of everything that Kirsten Johnson has shot in her life, and the editing is allowing it to become this like intensely, deeply emotional film on one side, and also allowing us to understand what's your work, but it means giving a lot away of yourself. So I would love to hear a little more about this editing process, if you can, how like how many steps, and how do you succeed in getting to that? And is there a point where like at night you have to scribble and think, okay, I have to let go and accept that I have to give maybe more of myself than being in the shadow? And also in terms of writing, because of course, like there is the thread of your mom's history that is somehow also creating this other narrative in the film. So maybe if that comes at the beginning, or if like along the way you stuck, I mean, I would really love to hear more about the process.
Okay. So thank you. Appreciate that. And I would say, like, critical to what you're saying is the idea of revelation. How much is revealed, right? And this is like a critical thing in the relationship between humans. So I'm running around and doing all these things, and you're saying, stay. I want to know this from you, right? So, okay, I'm staying. And there are many steps to the camera person editing process. And I don't know if they were all necessary to get here. But there's a first critical phase that lasts 3.5 years, where I'm trying to make a completely different film. So I go to Afghanistan in 2009, 10, 11. I'm trying to make a film with a couple of teenagers there. I work with an editor named Amanda Laws, and we cut and we cut and we cut, and we show that film, which we called A Blind Eye, to both of the teenagers. And one of them, who's a young woman living in Kabul, said, "Are you crazy? I can't be in this movie." And basically, in the period of time between 2009 and 2012, the world had changed, right? So, for those of us in the audience who lived before the internet, who lived before cell phone cameras, we lived in a different world where there wasn't going to be evidence, image evidence of us that went forward into forever. There was a little bits of image evidence, and we documentary filmmakers used to think that we could control images that we recorded. We are no longer in that delusion, right? None of us can control any of the images we film, nor can we control any images of ourselves. And this is no joke, and I have many questions about it, right? This is a very political question, and there's a war being fought, and images are some of the tools of war right now. There are many wars being fought, and images are the tools of war. But so I realized in this moment in 2012, even though I had this young woman's permission, that's my other key word, permission and revelation are my words, right? Even though I had her permission when I started making the movie, and she signed a document, by the time I'd finished editing it, she felt it would put her family's lives in danger. So those bodies I had filmed who had become images were still bodies, and they could be killed because of the images. So I said, okay, there's no way I'm doing that. That goes against all of my principles. So, okay, can we try to recut this film without your face in it and just your voice? And she said, yes. So then we spent another many months taking her out of the film, reconstructing the film. And that film got into the Sundance Composers Lab. And we went, and I felt kind of sick to my stomach because I had done this very pretentious voiceover in which I said, you know, you see the past coming forward out of the future. Like, you know, like I was like, can I be Werner Herzog? Can I be Agnes Varda? Can I be Patrizio Guzman? Like, you know, I was looking at all the people I admired and wondering how I could be them. So this is key to what I was talking about before. You can never be them. You can't be me, right? I can't be you. That's the beauty of this. And we're each trying to discover our own cinema language, our own means of expression. We're each trying to walk our own life. And until you start really doing that in your own body, you're screwed, right? Spend all your time thinking about what that person is doing in that body over there. It'll never work for you. You're in a different body. So, okay, I went to the Composers Lab. All the composers were like, we love this movie. We want to make music for it. We want to put music all over it. And I was like, I'm not sure this is a good idea, but great. I'm so happy you love me and you love the movie because I'm tired and I want to be done and I don't have any money. And it was the same time Laura Poitras was going to Hong Kong to film Snowden, and I felt jealous that I didn't get to go, but I'd had children, so I couldn't go. So it's just a mess, you know, just overwrought. And then we went to the edit lab, and all of these editors who I really respected, and this is when you listen to other people who you respect, because all you have is blind spots. They were all like, this is a mess. This is a pretentious mess. What are you trying to do? And I can tell you, one of the other things you have to deal with is humiliation and shame. I wept publicly, right, in front of this group of people, because I've been now working on this film for like 5 years. I had no money. I had these 2 little kids. The person I'd been working with was going off and being a superstar, making a really important movie. You know, Citizen 4 had like taken off without me, and I had a mess. I had a pretentious mess. And everybody thought I was just a camera person. I will not name the name, but someone on the crew came down here and told me they were just a technician, right? And I've learned many times in my life, it's great to be underestimated, right? It's great when people are like, oh, she's just a woman. She's just a camera person. Like, shh, I'll sneak right through. They won't see me coming. But so what happened in that edit lab was then somehow I remembered a moment from filming in Jasper, Texas, where this terrible violent crime had happened. And I told a story about it, and everyone said, do you have more stories like that? And I said, yes. So the first thing I imagined is this a crazy flip of camera person. I imagined the Afghan film with the images of Afghanistan and me telling stories from other places over the images from Afghanistan. So it's literally the opposite film. For those of you who haven't seen Camera Person, there's no, bless you, there's no voiceover, and it's images from all over the place.
You're going to get to see it this afternoon.
Yeah. Camera Person? I've seen Camera. Oh, right on. All right, come see it. I won't tell you too much. But so what we did then was we tried like crazy to craft this thing that had voiceover, that included lots of the Afghan material. And there's some very difficult material in Camera Person that was very emotional for me. And I put way too much of it in the movie. And we made something that we called the trauma cut. We made and it was not a rough cut.
How many hours long?
It was a trauma cut. Literally, the producer was watching it like, and at the end of watching it, she said, you have a therapist, right? Right? And And she was sort of like, maybe get another one. Right? Because I was basically showing the horror. I was like, look at this. Look, 6 genocides. Look, babies dying. Look. Right? And I had no idea how much of that I had inside of me, but I had been like burying it after years of doing camera work. And then if I was going to talk about it, wow, I was going to put it in your face. And I had a wonderful producer, Marilyn Ness, who knows something about compartmentalization and how important compartmentalization is for survival sometimes, which is something, you know, people go in opposite directions. Some people know that you can be all loose and free until you can't. And some people know you got to keep some stuff contained or it's going to be chaos. So you learn over time to sort of, okay. And Marilyn was like, stop. You may not edit again until you find a new editor, because you and Amanda are lost in the wilderness. And until you get some distance on this, because you can't do this to people. You can't put this in people's face like this. And so then began an 8-month process of talking to different editors and really getting attached to this idea, like maybe the footage can speak for itself. Maybe I don't have to make sure you know what to think when you see the footage. And I think that's a huge one for all of us, because we're like, we work so hard doing these films and these festivals, and we want to make sure people get it. Make sure they get the thing that we think they should get. So for me, it became like, oh, why do I think I should? Why must I? Why do I have to explain? Well, because I'm worried that no one's going to understand. So little by little, I started to realize if I allow the messiness of me into the movie, then people can relate to what it is to be a camera person. They can relate to what it is to be me in this really difficult situation and not know what the right thing to do is, let alone like, what do I do with the lens? What do I do with my batteries? What do I do with this person who's dying in front of me? What do I do, right? So little by little, we started to have confidence in that. And in the process, it was like a very slow, almost psychological excavation of material. So I didn't just choose 25 years worth of material and start mucking about it. It was like one situation after another I would pull up and deal with, and then another one would rise up. It was almost like geological sedimentation. But the great thing about Nels was that he said, like, you can ask all of your questions. Keep asking all of your questions. If the footage can ask the question, you can ask the question. So he didn't put any limit on me. Does that give you enough about process? Because I know you're looking
It's
at me
not
like,
bad.
you're like, I want more.
I want more. I always want more. Of
Yeah.
course.
Wait, we'll do more in the Q&A afterwards. So I don't give it all away.
Can I, before, just one question, that's because you were just mentioning it, and I think it's a very important question with the kind of cinema we're dealing with. Yesterday, I had a discussion with people, and someone was telling me that she was upset about the fact that there were films in the lineup, I won't say which one because this is our position, that were including images that were that she would have been willing to be warned of beforehand, which is something we generally don't do, because I find it really difficult to decide, you know, which kind of images and why, and to kind of like put this definition before one gets the chance to watch the film. So I would like to, because indeed, as you were mentioning, there are very hard images in the film, in your work in general. You've been in very difficult political context. If you want to tell us maybe about, you know, like we dig now in the essential part of your work, you know, how until what point do you decide to shoot or not shoot, or, you know, where is your limit, and how do you also relate with your limits in comparison to the limits of the director? You know, what kind of, you know, contract do you have with the person filmed and the director you're working with?
Well, that is a profound question, as you know, and I think we're all we are in the middle of seismic cultural and social change on these questions. And once again, I will go back to the internet and go back to cell phones and say, the world did not used to be like this. The world was not a place where there were places and platforms for people to realize they were not alone. So that if you look at all the things that have started to happen in our society, there are things that have been rendered invisible. Oh, there are no victims of sexual abuse. Oh, turns out there's a lot, right? And instead of feeling alone and ashamed, and I'm the only one this has ever happened to, and I will never speak of it, and everyone around me tells me to never speak of it, there are millions of people like me. So we have that in thousands of forms, right? People realizing I am not alone. The upside of that is very clear, right? And the downsides of that are also starting to reveal themselves, right? So now we are in a public space. This is being filmed. You and I, we exist. We're bodies. We have a reputation of work and trust we've built that's behind us. If I say one terrible thing here, it goes out forever out into the world. So any person who's in a public place, right, is holding a very precarious position, because suddenly there are many forms of accountability that exist. They are not just legal accountability, they are accountability to groups of people who have experienced things we have not, right? And so much of that is deeply legitimate. There has been, there has been no reparation for harm done. There has been no punishment for people who have done wrongs. There is generational harm, et cetera, right? So, I mean, one of the things that I did with Camera Person is to say, I don't know. I don't know if this is okay or if it's not okay. I'm worried that it's not okay. I'm trying to figure out how to give you clues as an audience to understand you're about to encounter something that might disturb you. It disturbed me. I do not want to remain in my isolation around the fact that when I film films, I've got a world of ethical questions. When you program a festival, you've got a world of ethical questions to handle. Let us not pretend that is not happening, because it is happening and the stakes are real. The stakes are very real. Where I think our challenge is right now as humans is, I think, notice when we seek to punish others. Notice when we seek to publicly criticize others. And wonder about the nature of our mistakes, our apologies, these kinds of things. I definitely don't have answers, but I do respect how high the stakes are. And I do have respect for people who have not been respected forever. And so how do we start to, all of us collectively say, why do we keep showing this when we could be showing that? Why do we lift this up and we minimize that? But I think we've got to create zones of trust that the people who are speaking of things that have never been spoken of before, they might have a point, right? They might know things about what trauma is that we don't know. How can we slow down a little bit, as opposed to, sort of, why do people need labels on, but I would say it's very tricky, because we know the edge of censorship is on the other side of this, right? And, we're going to only watch things that are familiar and comfortable to us. That's not a world we want to live in, right? So I was trying to put as many of these questions as possible into camera person, but I'm trying to be transparent. But full transparency, as you know, you can't do full transparency, right? Because you have obligations to many constituents. So it's very delicate. And I think whenever I find myself saying someone else should do something, check yourself. What is that about? What do you know about what it is to be them? Being another person is always harder than it looks. Always, I guarantee you, right? Because you know it from the inside. You know that being you is harder than it looks and that nobody really understands you, right? Right? No one sees how hard you work. No one sees how hard you try, right? Everyone just gives you a hard time. So don't do it to other people.
This has a lot to do with revealing, and what you're talking about is very well shown in camera person, because you're always in dialogue and in empathy. You're here with your body, with another body. The person you are interviewing, or of which you're in front with a camera, is talking about his or her life in very very intimate ways. And there's this particular scene. I don't think we need to show it, but you are in a health clinic for young mothers, and you are talking to a young mother. We can't see her. You're filming her hands. And should we watch it? Well, there's actually it's not cut, but there's two excerpts in this which talk about your relationship and how you dialogue not only with a camera but with your person and with your soul. So it's from camera person. It's two excerpts. One, you're with Abdul in Afghanistan, a young blind boy.
Najib, yeah.
Najib. And the other one, you're with a young girl in a health clinic. And you'll see in these extracts, you're talking, you're revealing, and you're sharing. So let's watch that. Check button. I think they got it.
They're good. Don't be scared.
I'm so high. I can see the whole problem. This is great.
Cover your hurt eye, and look out and tell me what you can see.
هر چیز میبینم.
Describe everything that you see.
تو را میبینم، کامرا را میبینم، تیبل و درختها و لباسا بالای تنه و ویزان، فلاورز، گلا را میبینم و همه چیزا را میبینم.
And now cover the other eye and tell me what you see.
Nothing. هیچ چیزی. Just in this side, I can feel a little bit light, and when I'm moving my, sorry.
It's okay. English or Dari is great. Come in, Dari.
وقتی که با یه چشمم هیچ چیز نمیبینم، نه این طرف نه طرف چیزی میبینم، فقط به این طرف یک کم روشنایی رو میبینم که یک ذره روشن است و دست خود شور میتونم تاریک و روشن میشه و میتونم سایه دست خود ببینم. دستم دقیقا دستم میبینم که تاریک است، یک سایه آوره.
You just look at me, even though we're not filming your face, you can still look at me. What are the expenses you have to take care of your son right now?
My expenses right now are Pampers, wipes, clothes, shoes, food, which is by being a single parent it's not easy and it's not impossible. It's possible because I've been doing it by myself for 19 months. But at the same time, I just feel like with another child and what I'm trying to do right now, I don't feel like I can do it. I work as a cashier. I just started there. Just work until I get out of school, that's all. So
Tell me about school.
I'm studying to become a paramedic. So yeah, I'm just trying to pursue my dreams so I can just have better for my son. And like I was telling you out in the lobby that I feel like a bad person because I let it happen a second time, you know? So I don't really think I can do a second child not by myself. And that's why I just feel like a bad person, a bad female, because I let it happen a second time. And I told myself not to do it, but it happened anyways.
Okay, the only rule I'm going to give you is you may not say I'm not a good person anymore because that is not the case. An unintended pregnancy is an unintended pregnancy. That's all it is. That's all it is. So, no more. Okay. Okay? I'm not kidding.
Yeah, me too.
It's
recorded.
Make us all
And-
cry.
and
You're
it's
making
also-
everybody cry,
and it's also-
number one.
And it's also happened to all of us.
Yeah.
We've all had unintended pregnancies.
If this clinic wasn't here, what would you do? And so just start the sentence with, if this clinic wasn't here.
If this clinic wasn't here, I'd probably do an adoption. But as crazy as it sounds, I said in my head, I said, well, I would rather an abortion than to give the baby up to a family I don't know. Because when I hold it, then that's love. And I don't want to, you know.
It's too much. I mean, that's part of the editing of Camera Person, why I buried things. Because it's like to re-encounter how difficult that scene is, and then to know that we're in that reality again. You know, in so many countries in the world, and certainly in the United States, that we are putting people in this position again. And it sort of goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like I'm a bad person. You know, that thing that we're telling ourselves on the inside. It was just so shocking to hear this young person who is trying so hard to take care of the baby she already has and to go to school and do all these things. And then her takeaway from this moment is she's a bad person. So what you hear is the voice of Dawn Porter, who's a lawyer and a filmmaker, a Black woman who's like ferocious in her like fight against the systems of racism and exclusion. And she's the one who says, you can't say you're a bad person anymore. Right. And then I'm the one who says, we've all had unanticipated pregnancies. And by proxy, I'm also saying I have had an abortion. Right. So there's a moment of, I am like you, we are the same, and yet we're not the same. She's the one who's there in that moment. And in that case, we were making a different film. That footage is in Dawn's film with no sound. It's a cutaway, right? Because the film was building a different argument, and that film was not about me, right? So that back and forth, a lot of the time is excluded from films by necessity, right? In the edit of what are we trying to do with the movie? and what is in the relationships of making the film is either in the footage implicitly or it's not shown at all. And part of why I needed to make Camera Person was the accumulation of so many experiences like that, where I'd had that profound an experience and then the shot was a cutaway. And I was like, I can't, like I need people to know what's behind that cutaway. Let's not pretend this is easy. Yeah.
I was reading last night like these rules or this kind of like and I think that it's because it's a question that we keep asking ourselves also as programmers, like you see those films and then you imagine, either it's a director from a specific context filming his specific context and then it's all fine, or you imagine the film finishing and the director packing his stuff and going home and leaving those people. And of course, seeing you, understanding the kind of person you are, I'm wondering how it is for you to, kind of like have this feeling of sharing, being so close, because we can see that you're of course emotionally so committed and and then leaving and in these rules you say that you're gonna do whatever you can, but then in the end you're gonna leave and they're gonna stay. So do you want to tell us a little more about what that means, and if, like, going back to what you just said, maybe this is the reason why at some point you say, I'm not a camera person anymore, I'm a director, because actually I want to kind of like at least.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I think that the role of being a camera person, like there's this way in which they're like all these pleasures and freedoms. You don't have certain responsibilities. I'm looking out there at Marianne Van Arks, who I worked with, who's an extraordinary director, and she took me into a world that was familiar to me, and yet she helped me see it in a way I never would have seen it. And the conversations that we had as a team trying to process working on this film is like some of the most interesting conversations I've ever had in my life, right? And I love that position, and not being the director, not being responsible for all of it is like a gift. But over time, what you start figuring out is questions of time and priority. And what happens if you keep traveling, keep meeting new people, never staying. So, in 25 years, I went to 87 countries and I probably traveled 250 days a year for 20 years. Do you think I needed to stop? Yeah. Right? And I think it corresponds to a really weird period in history. Like, I don't think humans are going to travel as much in the future, right? And we're all really rethinking these things. And the pandemic has shifted all of us. And, we're all getting used to being around lots of people again. But it's sort of figuring out priorities. I kind of, I want to share soon the thing that I've started to make. Can we switch? How are we doing? What time is it? What's happening?
We can switch.
We can switch?
Let's
We can switch
Are you
under
gonna go-
one condition.
Yeah.
Because we haven't addressed Dick Johnson is dead at
Oh,
all.
so maybe we go to Dick Johnson while the screen's up, and we do Dick Johnson, and then we
Exactly.
switch. You're
Okay,
brilliant.
perfect.
She's brilliant, people. She knows
Sure.
how to, right? So the thing I needed, and I think this is to think about with curation. We as humans can't be bludgeoned over the head with the horror of the world relentlessly. We need some humor, we need some beauty, we need some color, we need some hope. So you have to like sprinkle that in, because otherwise, at a documentary film festival, you're like, okay, and now I'm going to kill myself, right? Because it is rough not to make light of suicide. I am not making light of suicide. It's real. Mental illness is real. Losing your mind is real. This world will do it to you, right? Let's watch Dick Johnson.
Let's just wrap it up on Dick Johnson.
Yeah.
We have one excerpt or two excerpts. Which one do you want to pick, Aurelia?
The one. How about the last one?
Yeah, the last one, because it talks
9.
about
Let's do that.
making, thinking how,
Yeah.
reshaping, and
Yeah.
hallucinations.
Yeah, hallucinations. Yes.
We're gonna play the last excerpt. Christian, or I don't know who's pushing play. So extract number 9.
9.
Imagine it looks like at Vision du Réel we like to like use
And
stolen
actually, can I tell you, it
images.
really made me happy that the movie still plays when the image isn't working that well, right? The laughs are still there. I was like,
Yeah.
and which, you know, which is always the like camera people, we like to think we're the center of the world. And in fact, it's the sound people, you know, and talk about the people who are invisible in the process, or the thing that we're like, oh, I can do sound. But in fact, you know, if the sound is there, you know, you could like look at something that's all crunched up and you can't even see the detail and still follow it. Yeah.
So before you start drifting, do you want to just, you
With
know,
purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, you know, this film that is definitely, you know, something very
A departure?
different? Well,
Yes. So as you can catch a drift from Camera Person, those who haven't seen it yet, it's emotionally serious. It's sort of like as serious as a heart attack in lots of ways. There are a few more laughs in it than I just saw a couple. I was like, oh, there's more than one laugh in the movie. Great. But you know, my mother had dementia for 7 years, and my dad uses the word brutal. That's when the brutality started. And I like, that was my and my dad's favorite word for years. We were like, brutal. This is brutal. It's brutality. But it felt like 7 years of crying and brutality. Like we were so incredibly sad to see my mother like fall apart to dementia. And my brain protected me. Talk about compartments. My dad was starting to show signs of dementia. I had lived with dementia for 7 years and I did not see it. I was like, talk to the hand. Nothing's happening. Right. And then I had this dream where this man who I didn't recognize sat up in a casket and said, I'm Dick Johnson and I'm not dead yet. And that was it. I was like, ugh. And suddenly I had this crazy idea that gave me sort of obscene amounts of pleasure. I was like, I'm going to make a comedy about killing my dad over and over again. And people were just like, are you okay? I'm serious. People would just be like, I'm like,
Still haven't
it's going to
changed
be
therapist.
really funny. Yeah, still with the same therapist. And I was just like, this is it. I'm going to make a funny movie and I'm going to kill my dad. And I would say this like smiling at people. And, you know, my dad's like the most gentle, wonderful person. You'd never want to kill them. But I had this idea of like, we're going to do his funeral for real, like before he's dead. And so I was just like obsessed with this idea. And I knew almost immediately that time was limited. So, I mean, these are the elements, right? Time, bodies, stakes, and all the elements were present. And then there's the tool of cinema. It is a good word. I like your word. I just like to use many words for the same thing, right? So cinema is a tool. It's a time machine. Blah, blah. But I knew I needed cinema's help because I was not going to survive. I literally was like, I cannot cry for another decade straight. I actually can't. And I was like, no. So pitching this crazy idea gave me, it was fun for me. And people thought I was a little odd, but I'm used to people thinking I'm a little odd and that's cool. Like I am a little odd. I'm 6'2". I've been a little odd all my life. And like, we're all a little bit odd. And it's like, embrace the odd, you know? And so basically it happened. We got money to make this film through a process that lasted about 1.5 years. And we sort of had to prove we could do it. And then once we started making it, my team kept saying, why do you want your dad to die again? And it took me a really long time to figure out because I want to resurrect him. I want him to never die. Cinema can help me put him back together. Cinema can help me keep him, you know, and that was always the quest of like, how do we get my dad in a bottle? And we got my dad in the bottle of this movie. And it is happy news. Dick Johnson is still alive. And I think he's now going to live forever. I really do. And the movie gave us a way to be together and enjoy. So I think that's the thing with like these really, really hard problems that we're all facing is like, how can we not pretend that bad things aren't happening? Bad things are happening. People are getting hurt. People are abusing power. That is happening. How do we both acknowledge that and be kind to each other and figure out a new way to address it? Because clearly we've got some old systems that aren't working very well. I don't know.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Kirsten, for having accepted to,
I sat. I stayed.
very much appreciated.
It
I'm
wasn't
going to
easy.
leave you guys the
Okay.
floor, and you're
Fantastic.
going to be the boss now.
Thank you for being
Even
the boss.
further, the
Thank
boss.
you for being the boss and
Wow.
making me sit down and answer you. I like that. It's good. Everyone give a hand. Everyone stand up.
Emily.
Everyone stand up. Give a hand. Everyone stand up for Emily. Woo! Emily. Woo! This incredible festival that she's doing. All right. How's everybody doing? How's it feel to stand up? It's good. Anyone need to go to the bathroom? Lights. I authorize anyone who needs to leave.
Of course.
Anyone who needs to go to the bathroom. Knowing how often you need to go to the bathroom is one of the most important things about being a camera person. And I'm literally not joking you. This is why one of my finest skills. You do not want to have to leave a moment when it is happening. Hi, Laura. I met Laura yesterday down at the lake. She watched me like a crazy person swim in Lake Geneva. And I was like, it was colder than I thought it was going to be. So remembering that you're a body, right? That you're all sick of sitting down and that you want to stretch and stand up. Yeah, move your neck, right? That is the thing that camera work keeps reminding you. So can we come back to my computer? Can we do it?
Let's do that. You brought a number of things with you.
I did. I'm gonna share. I'm gonna show. So we're going back to my computer and let's see if we can. Yeah. So I'm really interested in how things teach us how to make them, right? Because one of the things that happens when we're like I'm imagining I'm going to make a film about my father who dies and comes back to life over and over again, and it's a comedy. I'm going to imagine that. Well, I imagined it. I imagined my father was going to float off on an ice floe, that I was going to drop him out of a building, that he was going to catch on fire. I imagined all of those things. I hired a stunt coordinator. He took my dad downstairs, and my dad revealed to both of us that his dementia was more advanced than I was willing to admit to myself, and that he could not follow what we were saying, so that he was ready to walk out into live traffic in his misunderstanding of what we were asking for. And I was like, uh-oh. I just imagined I'm going to do all these things with my dad, and my dad can't even step off the curb safely. So, I mean, the irony was sweet. For the first time in my life, I'd had money in advance to make a movie. And suddenly the person I'm making the movie about can't do anything. Can't do any of the things I've imagined. It was not a cute moment. So, you know, I collected some of these images to show you. And I'm teaching this class right now called Making Of. And these are some of my students. And they are making images of each other and making books. This is the class. They're out. They're moving around. And in the course of working together, I came up with an idea. I'll do it for a minute. I started to think about all of the things I attempt to express to people when I do a workshop. And I was like, all of the categories. And it was so much that all of a sudden I thought about a pack of cards. So, you know what you can do for me? You can hand them out. Don't be a super spreader. These are not actual playing cards. They are designed by an extraordinary graphic designer named Lori Rosenwald. You're going to appreciate this story. There are only each one of those is the same cards. There's 15 cards. They've got a front and a back. And so you're going to take those home. What I wanted to do was make you a full pack of cards. That's what I imagined. I had this idea. I'm going to make a full pack of cards, which is called the deck of a life in film, right? And I started experimenting with this idea, and I thought about each set, like hearts is people. It's who. Spades is how. How do we do the work? Clubs is what. What does it take? And diamonds is why, right? And I started to put on that list, and before I cut it down to just what, I was like, what, where, when? Remember, everything will be harder than you think, right? Is there truth in that? Yes. How? Let a film teach you how to make it. So what is like the classic irony of it is I had this idea of what I was going to do. I came up immediately with a list of 54 things without even like breaking a sweat. I came up with 54 ideas. So here in Why of Diamonds, why do we make films? Glamour, status, justice, shame, generosity, cash money, debt to ancestors, debt to swindlers, meaning making, change in the world, self-growth, ego. And that was just like really liberating to me. Like, and this is the thing I do with my lists is like allow the contradictions, allow your own contradictions, right? So look at that. David Bowie's face is being stretched. So this was a young designer I was working with at Brown. She started making the cards. And then I talked about it to my friend Lori, and she was like, I want to make those cards. And I was like, okay, go for it. And she said, how much time do we have? And I said, well, we've got a week. And she said, so that means 108 cards in a week. And she was like, I think I could do it. So this is the thing of like everybody like seeing bigger than they can actually do, right? Can you design 108 things in a week? Vincent and Joanna? No, you can't. And then can you get them printed? No, you can't, right? And so one of my big ones is give credit to the people you work with and understand what are their difficulties and their limitations. What happened, Adrian? You knocked something over, right? He made a noise. Those are the limitations of walking around in the dark, right? That's what happens. And so I called a printer in New York because they could make actual cards. And I was so excited. I was going to have a whole pack of cards for you. And they're like, oh, that takes 3 weeks to do. And I said, well, if I pay a lot more money, can you do it in a week? And they were like, yeah, we could do it. We could do it. And then Lori's like, yeah, I can do it. I can do it. And then she started calling me and saying, wait, there's a bunch of typos in this. And you've done 8, 9, and 10 of hearts over twice. And we need to edit it. And suddenly everything was taking longer than we thought it was going to take. And the printers in New York were like, no way, can't do it. So then it was like 3 days. And I'd already said to Aure, I'm going to have cards and everything. It's really cool. So then Lori's like, I know a printer in Geneva. So then we're using Google Translate, talking to the printer in Geneva. Lori's sending files that don't speak to this kind of files. Until this morning, Vincent went to Geneva, to like the fin fond of Geneva, picked up the cards and brought them here. Right? Woo! And there are only 15. You don't have the full set. We're not playing with a full deck, right? But you get the idea, right? What I'm doing is trying to group these categories. So one of the categories is people, right? This is in Switzerland. I put this image yesterday. This is my friend Joanna's children, Layla and Theo, right? So in the deck of hearts, I've got your family of origin, healthy. Your family of origin, health crisis. You healthy, you health crisis. Love, future love. You know, I have all these different categories. Collaborators who you respect, collaborators who have more power than you, collaborators you wish to work with, right? We have all of these categories in our lives, and all of them take time. So the idea of the deck is to like actually see how much we're asking of ourselves, how much this actually takes, and to realize like, oh, okay, we're in a moment of family of origin, no health crisis. Great. Okay, that's not going to take time right now, but it suddenly might, right? So you're sort of noticing that you have all of these elements in your life. Because I think film and the fantasy of film can take your world over completely. And, you know, anyone who loves anyone who works in a film festival knows there aren't enough hours in the day. Anyone who works with a filmmaker knows there aren't enough hours in the day. Right? Am I right? Yeah. So I want this deck of cards. So we're gonna do this. It's gonna happen. You're gonna all communicate your information. This is a prototype. A final deck of cards will emerge with time, right? Because good, fast, cheap, you can't do it. Slow down. Don't ask people to do favors for you in the middle of the night, right? Don't ask people to work crazy hours for you, except sometimes when, right? So, you know, this idea of time running out and there not being enough time, it's all about, okay, in one situation like this, how much time do we have? We've got hours.
We've got, I don't even know, it's 2:44 on this.
How much time do we have?
Another hour.
We have another hour.
Another hour.
Okay, this is what my mom calls the disappearing hour. Right? If anyone has hosted a dinner party, right? This hour will be gone in a second. We're not ready. We're going to run out of time. An hour is too short. A day. What happens in a day? Sun goes down, right? A day ends. Thanks to technology, days never end, right? We have lights that can go on all the time. We have computers that can work all the time. We have digital cameras that can film forever, right? So machines, and we're all aware of this is happening to us. The algorithms don't care about our bodies, right? They actually don't care about our bodies. So in our employment, in what we are asked to do as filmmakers, in the distribution systems, they don't care if we go to the bathroom. They don't care if we drink water. Look at all that time I just wasted. Right? And you know this is true on the level, like on really serious social levels, right? Like FedEx drivers don't have time to go to the bathroom. They don't have time to drink water. And now they can walk up to someone's house and that person is filming them. And it's going to get posted on the web, right? Like it's like we're in madness time. So the other thing that runs out, right, is here's Buster Keaton. This is evidence of how I taught myself how to make Dick Johnson is Dead. This was in an application I did for the Sundance Art of Nonfiction Fund, and it's the beginning of Dick Johnson. I put a postcard of Buster Keaton there. I wrote those things, and it's me coming up with that idea. So I can look back and see, oh, I was starting to have the idea. I didn't have the idea yet. All right, so this was me having fun last night. This is the present. That was last night. Now we're in the present. It was the present last night. Last night is now the past, right? People are filming me. We're in the present. Okay, then I drew on top of that, bodies go on for a certain amount of time into the future and then they die. Images go on. What's missing in this picture? Ghosts. Ghosts. Ghosts of images that were never made. Ghosts of images that are disappearing. As we all know, there's lots of missing images, right? Things that haven't been filmed yet. Cinema language that hasn't been invented yet. And each of you is holding that inside of yourself. And you're doubting whether the world needs your cinema language, whether you're capable of it, whether you have the stamina. Maybe I'm not the person to, but in fact, your ghosts are there, right? And you're trying to figure out, do I bring up the ghosts? So then I just did this strange thing, which is I Googled how many camera people have been killed since I started doing camera work. And I have to say, it was a smaller number than I thought, right? 242 journalists. This is the Committee to Protect Journalists website, their list, an amazing list. And thousands and thousands of journalists have been killed in this amount of time. But they have a special category for camera operator. I just hold the camera, right? But sometimes you get killed doing the work. And, you know, look, here's Montes, who is one of us, who's a documentary filmmaker, who was killed like last week.
3rd of April.
Right? I got it wrong. I made a mistake.
It was on Saturday, April 2. Right.
You got it wrong.
I got it wrong.
Does it matter? It doesn't really matter because he's not here, right? So this like knowledge of the stakes of this work, you know, it's like both were way out of proportion. Like in the 30 years that I've been doing camera work, 242 camera people have been killed. That's a lot less people that have been killed riding in cars in the amount of time that I've been riding in cars and doing camera work. And yet everyone thinks of my work as dangerous work, right? Because we've attached some kind of glamour to risk-taking that I think is part of the perversity of the military-industrial complex, that we have value when we are doing dangerous things, right? We have value when we are near people being hurt. So, you know, I think question that. But I just, you know, I went through, and I mean, it's so, I went through and I looked up images of the camera people who've been killed in recent years. And it's just like, oh, look at this human who loves life. Look at this guy. Nabil Al-Kati. I discovered him last night and I learned his wife was pregnant when he got killed, right? It's like, you can't take it. This world is too cruel. These are the camera people, right? You recognize Pierre. I discovered Siraj, Mika, Mohammed, Johnson. I found my family. Johnson Barasa. Johnson Barasa was not killed doing camera work. He had a heart attack. It killed him. Life kills us. It does. And so we have to figure out, we sort of have to figure out, how are we spending our time? What are we choosing to do with our time? How do we find what makes sense to do? So that was sort of the idea of these cards, is like, how can we like look at them and figure out for ourselves, how are we spending our time? How are we juggling our time? Yeah. And then I was just, you know, then it's like Mexico. And then I was so happy because I found some journalists, some camera people who'd been released after 4 months of detention. I was like, yes, right? There are these small victories. But sometimes we look at the world and it just like hurts our eyeballs, right? This is a collage I made when I was a 17-year-old in 1986. I already understood the world was a harsh place. I didn't quite have the details, but I already got it, right? So, but then what do you do with it? this is the amazing thing about images. I'm on the same roll of film that I took with Senegalese men who fought in World War I, and there I am at 22 years old, right? Those men are no longer alive. I'm no longer 22 years old. These images still exist. What do they tell us? What can we learn from them? Each one of us has a different relationship to the image, right? So for me, these images are personal. I know the names of those people. You don't, right? If I hadn't told you that they fought in World War I, you would never know. The image doesn't tell you that, right? So a lot of times we're in this struggle of like, what does the image leave out? What's absent from the image? I feel like maybe we go to the above. Does it feel right, or do I keep going?
We can, of course.
How do you feel, people? How do you feel? The above is showing later today. Maybe we just keep going. I say we keep going. We go live?
You're on a good track.
Anybody tired of me talking? All right, because I can stop. I can stop talking. I can do these little pauses. I did this other hilarious thing was I looked up camera person and I looked up cameraman. Right? I'm the only thing listed for camera person. Everything else, cameraman, is the world of cameras, right? We haven't quite changed the language yet, but we're trying.
You've coined the word.
You know, it existed before me, right? But people say it more. So these are all these things about language. Like, how do we shift them collectively? I'm over masterclasses. I don't want to use the word masterclass anymore. Anybody have any ideas of what we can say differently? We can all start refusing to attend masterclasses. Might be the way to go. Like, no more masterclasses ever. But it's like thinking of like, how do we shift these words? Why are we shooting people when we film them? Can we stop shooting people? And yet people like me, I'm aware of that. And yet I say it over and over again, right? What are these like habitual, easy things in our language that we keep perpetuating, and for why? Here's me as a cyborg. That's the other word I'm looking for. How do we describe what it is to be what we are now, right? You all have in your possession one of these. When was the last time you touched it? Are you touching it now? Yes, you're touching it now. How quickly, if we leave a space, do we know whether we left it behind? Immediately, right? Because we want to check it and see what happened while we were in that 3-hour-long masterclass, right? What happened? Oh, I'll just check it underneath my chair. So I would say we're all part human, part machine now. We are all camera people now. Do you agree? You feel that way? Yes, no, not really. You hold a repository of images. How many people would say that they are a camera person? Raise your hand. How many would say you're a cyborg? A lot of you are in denial. A lot of you don't think you're going to die either, right? How many of you would say you're an artist? Oh, it's hard to raise that one. How many of you would say you're a fraud? How many would say, oh, I just dropped my phone? How many of you would say you are not yet what you wish to be? Right? That's profound and great, right? That we still wish to be different than we are. How many of you already have regrets? Right? It's intense being human, isn't it? It's really intense. And so these things like give us new, strange portals into our own pasts, into other people's pasts. So I've got like 46,000 photos of my children here. Right? so that even if I'm not with them, I can look at a picture of them and feel differently, feel better, right? Or someone you died loved, you can look at that picture and they're still with you. So these things are helping us, and yet they're also doing other things to us, right? So I like to think of myself as some form of a canary in a coal mine, because I've been a camera person 30 years longer than some of you. A couple of you in the audience have been a camera person longer than me. I won't name names. This is a great moment of me in Tel Aviv, dressed like a Hasidic woman, and a woman came to me and screamed at me, "What is an observant woman like you doing carrying a camera?" It's good stuff. Can't make it up. You cannot make it up. So, I've been in all these different places in the world. I'll slow down, right? All these different moments in time. That's me at Guantanamo. And that's me with a prison guard at Guantanamo with his tattoo that says, "Life sucks," right? And once again, that image changes once you know the context, right? Depending on what you understand about history, about politics, where you're positioned, that image can be funny, and that image can be really troubling, right? And that's the thing about images. They are informed by the people who look at them. And our ability to control their meaning is quite complicated. But we can control meaning by withholding information. I could just show you this and be like, "Look at this hilarious image," right? But for me, it's not a funny image, and yet it is, right? And so holding all that sort of complexity and duality is what we're tasked with in this work. That's the very nice tent where the females stay at Guantanamo. The female journalists. I love it. So one of the things that we do, I think, as people who make films is we beat ourselves up a lot. And we are very rigorous, and we hold ourselves to high standards. We hope. If you're not doing that, get out of the business. Is it a business? That's another word. I don't know that I would. Is it a business? Are these products that we're making? Is this an ecosystem?
Is this a job?
Is this a job? I actually was audited by the IRS, and they looked at my receipts and my money, and they said, "This is a hobby. What you do is a hobby. This is not a profession." I was like, "I am well aware." But, this woman is in camera person. She's extraordinary in it because she's got this like fabulous sense of fashion. And I complimented her on her sense of fashion. And she sort of has this star turn in camera person. And then we managed to finish the film and get into the Sarajevo Film Festival. And I found out right before the screening was to happen, I found out that she had died. And I was just like, "Come on, world. Come on. Really? Don't do that to me. Let this woman see herself in a movie." And her family was observing a period of mourning because they are Bosnian Muslims. And so we moved the screening a couple of days later so they could come to the screening. And her son and daughter-in-law came to the screening, and I sat behind them. And the son, when she came on the screen, put his hand in his head and didn't let go. And I thought, what have I done? Why have I, made these people's pain worse? Why did I invite them to come? And then at the end of the screen, the man said, "You brought my mother back to life. We don't have any photos of her." And so we ran out, we went to the color printer and made photocopies of a screen grab and framed it. And they left and went back up to the place where they live in the countryside with a picture of her, right? so it's like this weird thing. We wish that everything that we did was only going to help people. We wish that everything we did would sort of turn out in that like beautiful way. It really doesn't. So how do we handle that? How do we handle the flip side, right? What do we do with the flip side? And this is like my constant dilemma, and I think is all of our constant dilemmas. And this is, so interesting to me. I had this postcard for many, many years before I filmed tunnels that looked like this in Bosnia. And did I film those tunnels because I had that postcard, right? How do images attract us to other like images and give us the way forward? Because I really think like we don't just function in words, right? We function in other, sort of modalities. And for those of us who are really image-based, just one of the things I do is I keep this collection of images going, and then, I'll tap into it at different moments, and then I'll like be surprised to find an image that I made in the future is back in the past, right? Oh, here's me as a cameraman. I like that one. So Steinberg is like such he's just one of these people who helps me so much because he, constantly sees the absurdity in things. And when I was working on Dick Johnson, I was like, how can I represent people who aren't here? And the idea of the mask sort of came to me. But so you'll see now, this is his image. I do, I have, I am, right? So the I do is like us, like we're not what we want to be yet, right? It's that like beautiful sunny thing out there. And then I have, look at that, a pitiful I have, right? But it's on the foundation of I am. So this was like the series of images that we referred to as we started to think about making Dick Johnson is Dead. And you can see the film, right, coming to life in these images. And then this is a series of images that's from Kendrick Lamar's video, just incredible, right? So, this is my other terrain of trying to think about what's happening in this moment in history. Because I think many of us here are trying to make films based on things we have seen in the past. We're also trying to make films based on the things we have not seen in the past. We're trying to make films in response to what is missing, or what was invisibilized, or what was misrepresented, right? But I would sort of posit to all of us, and let us all question this actively, we are not in the same territory that any documentary filmmakers were in and have been in. I know we share all the same ethical concerns. That has not gone away. But we are in new territory, and we have to, I believe, like think and act differently. And I'm not sure how, and I'm not going to be the one to figure all of it out. We are going to figure this stuff out collectively. But I think the fact that all of us have phones and certain forces in the world understand what bodies can do if they can record at any time, right? Systems of power are aware, hey, it's not so easy to hide what we've been up to, because there's always somebody there with a phone, no matter what happens. I mean, in my 30 years of being a camera person, I've only filmed a couple of extraordinary moments. But as we all know now, if you see a meteor coming towards the Earth, thousands of people will be filming it. The subway shooting that just happened in New York, thousands of photos. January 6th, thousands of photos, right? When things are happening and there are humans with cameras, right? We're collecting evidence. So, as in almost all recorded history of military events, guess who doesn't get cameras? Guess who doesn't get phones? The soldiers, right? But, here we have new territory where a Ukrainian journalist is putting Russian soldiers who have been captured on camera, filming them, calling their mothers. I don't know if anyone's seen that footage, but people talk about it being, is it a violation of their human rights? We're not supposed to do that to captured prisoners. We're not supposed to show their faces. But this is the kind of thing that is happening at this moment in history, right? So, one of my great joys is that we've all got cameras, right? It used to be, this is 5 broken cameras. Look how hard it is to have and maintain cameras when they keep getting attacked. But, look at how big and difficult cameras used to be. Look at that nightmare for our shoulders. Here's an old still camera that Ramel Ross is using because he wants to talk about images of Black people in the American South that were never photographed. So he's using a tool that is connected to that time, right? So think about how your tools relate to what time in history you're trying to depict. There's Wad in Syria. And there's my favorite, Buster Keaton and the camera monkey. So how do we make surprising images? That's my son, right? I'm protecting his anonymity. I'm making you laugh, and I contained him for a few moments, right? And so how do we collaborate with the people we're working with and create new kinds of images that might matter to us and are specific to us? How do we do that? That's it's enough to, be too difficult to do, right? And we take inspiration from other people's work. That's the great artist, Nick Cave. And we remember how magical the world is, right? You could hold the sun in your fingers like that. So you've been very quiet and very good as an audience. But I feel like I've been up here and I've been very good. And it's time to let's open the lights up and
let's talk.
Let's talk because time's running out and there's high stakes and I'm willing to answer anything you want me to answer. But I would say sort of collectively here at this festival, we're at a moment where we're all aware, hey, there's a war going on in Ethiopia. No images, nobody's paying attention. There's a war going on in Yemen. No images, we're not paying attention. There's a war going on in Ukraine. Images, we're paying attention, right? And this is true of human history. So that's one set of things. But what are we going to make? What are we doing? What's going on? What do you got for me? And I feel the pressure of this moment, right? You're you haven't really been listening. And you're just oh, now, do I have to be seen? Do I have to be revealed? Who's ready? Anybody?
People who are online can also ask questions from afar.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes.
That's nice. I like it. I'm just coming out to look at you. All right. I'm just going to notice a brave human who raised his hand.
Thank you very much. I would like to know what you do with your images. Do you archive them? How do you go with them? Do you have the rights of your images? What do you do with them?
Such a good question. All right. What do I do with the images? So, often when I work for other people, I work for hire, and those images belong to the people who hired me to film them. And those people take and archive the footage. So when I made Camera Person, I had to go back through 25 years. I had to go back to every single director and say, can I look at this footage? Do you still have it? Some people had lost footage. Some people it was in a basement. Some people it was in a tight storage unit. And I thought to myself, why didn't I make doubles of everything? There wasn't time. There wasn't resources. And I wasn't interested at that time, right? And this is the other thing we all know, like, who has backed up their phone in the iCloud? Who has not backed up their phone at all? Oh, you raise your hand again, just to hold it up there. Okay, feel what it's gonna feel like to lose all those images. Feel it right now, because it's gonna happen to one of you. Oh my God, Lena, you? On oh, hold on, I'm coming over to talk to you now. You have not backed up your images on purpose? All right. So, you know, this is an extraordinary filmmaker, Lena, who has lived through the ongoing war in Syria, who is making a film about it, and she hasn't backed up her photos. Let's hear about it.
I guess it's part of an experimental phase I am going through with my camera and how I'm valuing my images and my relationship with them.
Profound. And this is why we all need help. This is why we all need other people to help us take care of ourselves, right? I went through an experiment when my mom had Alzheimer's. I stopped using diaries or journals. I didn't do it consciously. I was totally testing myself to see if I could still remember. And I was forgetting all kinds of things. I would be late to appointments. I would miss things. And I'd be like, I've got it. I've got dementia. I was getting close to my mother. I was dying with my mother. I'm really amazed and sad that I have no record of what I did in my life for 7 years. But hey, turns out I actually do. I shot a lot of films for a lot of other people. Look, I shot films. There you go. I carried a camera on behalf of other people. I don't know how to say it easier. And that was part of Camera Person, was going back and retrieving. So I was really grateful to the people who had archived and saved things, right? So there's some things it's too hard for us to do in the moment. Any of us who know how physically exhausting it is to film, who goes home and like writes a lengthy journal entry after a 14-hour day of filming? We don't do it. We forget what we were thinking in those moments. Now, do we want to remember everything? No, clearly not. Some of us would like to actively forget things. The problem is the you in the future. What does the you in the future want or need? What does your child not yet born, if they will ever be born? What do future generations want or not want from us, right? And all of this digital stuff is incredibly hard to keep storing because we store it in a drive and then that drive goes out of date, and right? So, you know, we're all up against, I mean, I keep saying like images don't disappear, but images do disappear, right? And they're disappearing in all of our own lives. Get somebody to help you with your experiment. You can experiment, and then on the sidebar, get somebody to record, save some of the images. I see you. You're there, right? With your hand. All right, here. I really hope this is not a super spreader event.
Sorry. I was just wondering, a lot of people might say that moments that you might witness become less special when you record them or when you leave with images of them. But I'm sure that you might have an interesting reason why you can make things more special by recording them, or like what your thoughts are on keeping that, or you could say like that sacredness or that importance in.
That's it. Do you have a moment that you chose not to film something that you're thinking of when you think of this? Yeah. We ask questions for reasons. We've experienced things. So those of you who couldn't see, what's your name? Violetta just nodded. I'm not going to ask her what that moment was, right? That's a tender moment. And, you know, I think cameras do so many things. And I think we get trained to behave with cameras in very particular ways. Got to stay on the tripod. It's got to be steady, right? And she's got a long lens. She can't take it off the tripod because it's going to move around. But as you work with how you function with a camera, think about how it allows you to be with people or to not be with people, right? And so, you know, I have a moment in Dick Johnson is Dead where the camera is on a tripod and my dad, for the first time in my experience with him, says to me, "I'm your little brother now." And I was gutted. I was just like, no, we're not already at this stage of the dementia. No, you're still my father. And thank goodness that camera was on the tripod because it was all I could do to just keep standing there, right? And I was like, tried to get a little bit of focus, but it's out of focus. And that moment of filming is literally in sync with me in that moment. I'm out of focus. Our relationship is out of focus. I don't care that that moment is not a perfect moment, right? But there's also a moment in the film where my dad apologized. My dad is like lucid and weeping, even though he has dementia. He says, "I am so sorry that I'm putting us through this again. I'm sorry for you that I got dementia." I could choke myself up talking about that, right? He's apologizing to me and I'm filming. I want to hug him. I put the camera down on the floor. I don't turn it off and I go and I hug him. And we cry off camera, right? So the camera does not prevent me from doing what I need to do as a human with my body and my dad in that moment. But I also have the record of that moment that I knew I needed because I knew he was disappearing. And I don't have enough of my mother, right? So you're always sort of doing this weird, you're trying to gauge it and you sort of can't know in the moment necessarily. But I think don't let the camera be an excuse to behave in ways that you would never behave as a person. That's like the big one, right? I remember one of the first shoots I was on was at the Louvre. I was working with this really well-known cinematographer, male cinematographer, and there's this huge line of women waiting for the bathroom. And we had to like start walking with IMP, and he really had to go to the bathroom. And he just ran with the camera in front of the line of women and went into the women's bathroom and went to the bathroom. And I was just standing there like, what? Like, why does he think he can do this? And he's like, oh, that's what we had to make happen because we had to go. And I was like, yeah, right? And those are the kind of things. And then at some point later in my life, I did that. And I went, excuse me, I've got to go right now. And then I got to leave. And I apologized to all the women down the line, which is the only different thing that he did. Was that better? I don't know. I should have gone to the bathroom earlier, which is why I counsel all of you to go to the bathroom when you need to go to the bathroom. Don't wait till you have to cut in front of a bunch of people to do it because you have to keep filming. Who else? Yes. Right here, Temps.
We're here as a class, we're all kind of writers. And I was I was wondering, because I look at your footage and in a way you're the author of the footage, and at the same time you say you're filming for other people or because other people asked you to. And now you made a film from that footage, and all of a sudden that relationship changes again, where you kind of, I mean, you were always the author in a way, but I was wondering what that does to you, that you're filming for other people, and what this question of authorship and this position that you take, how that shifts.
Why writing is so cool, right? Because in writing, you can keep shifting where the authorship is located, right? And you can, and yet you are always the author, right? And so, I mean, I think all these, you know, I think about like in this moment, do all of us here wish to become filmmakers who are known, that our name is known or our writing is known? And you think about this moment in human history that we're in. And it's like, what are we doing? Who are we doing it for? What do we need from this? And how could, you know, and I'm not like, collective authorship is in all of these things I've shown you. We're just not naming all the names, right? The woman who is having the abortion, whose face is not shown, she's a co-author of that image, right? She didn't want to be seen. She doesn't want her name to be known because she would suffer from that. She's seen the movie and she values the movie. But there are lots of times when someone appears in a movie, they get no credit, their name is not named, and they're furious. My image has been taken, my name has been taken in the service of your film, right? Hello. Hello, camera. There you are, right? And, you know, this is going out into the future. Where am I? I'm like standing in the worst possible space, right? Do I look that way? Do I look that way, right? But I'm thinking about this other thing, which is all of you. Have you filmed any of the audience? Farah, yes, right? Did you all give your permission to be filmed? Right? Do you want to go out into the future with me? Not necessarily. Right? And I think this is the thing around permission and what we care about gets reproduced or put out into the world. It's like, this is why putting my children and my mother and my father into the films, it's like everybody gets that I care. Right? That becomes it's very clear. I care about all the people I film, and yet I have different relationships to them. Sort of owning those differences matters to me. Who's got a question? She's just like, not me. Not me. I keep looking at you, though. I'm going to trip on this. I'm coming up. Oh, it's so good to see you. I've been lonely up there on the big stage. How's it feel up there, Aurelian? It's kind of lonely, isn't it? Or you like the power of it?
I'm already in 2023 right now. Time has...
All right, where's the first one? Oh, you got, oh, nicely done.
No, I was given the microphone.
I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. You're so wonderful person.
Oh, thank you.
And
you are so wonderful person too.
You were saying earlier that you only managed to film a couple of spectacular things. What were there?
Oh, you know, it's funny what feels spectacular at the time, and then you look at it again, you're like, not bad. For those of you who haven't yet seen Dick Johnson is Dead, you can watch it on Netflix. And, you know, my dad, his dementia, he's looping. For those of you who know dementia, the person repeats and repeats the same thing over and over again. My father, what he repeats is stunning and amazing. I was telling this to Miriam. My father says over and over, I just want to make sure you know that I love you. That's so beautiful. And he says it 900 times a day, right? And so one of the things with Dick Johnson is Dead that we figured out how to do is if we made the camera record in slow motion, we could enter the space between when he said, I just want you to know that I love you, and stretch it out so that we could make 4 minutes out of 5 seconds. And in that space, the film helped me like see my dad's expressions again, and that they're still in there in that space. So we like expanded time. So that was like one of the most spectacular moments for me, I have to say. But also it's funny, violence does come to mind. I remember a shot, I was filming at the Woodstock Film Festival and not festival, the music festival. And there was this big blue wall, and I just had framed like this big wide blue shot, just the color. And then this couple walked into the shot as if they were like on a stage, and they were talking and laughing. And then all of a sudden I saw the body of the woman totally change. And then the man looked, and then she hauled off and slapped him and walked out of the shot. And I was just like, how did that happen? Why did I just set up that blue stage for them to walk onto, for that slap to happen and for her to walk off? I'll never know. But like moments like that happen where you're just like, what kind of weird magic is that? So I love it when things are like uncanny, like where the sort of uncanny manifests, the thing you've been thinking of in your head, suddenly it's just there in an image in front of you. Has anyone experienced this? Right? It's good. More of it. More of it. All right. Who has another question? Anybody? Yes, over there. The mic is going that way. I'm coming because I like to see your eyes and I like to make Daniel work a little bit because otherwise it's too boring, right? It's just too boring. Now look at, try to do follow, focus. I'm coming towards you. It's getting harder. It's getting harder. I'm out of focus. Ah! Can't do it. Right? You give up. You can't do it all. Okay. Oh,
Hi.
thanks for standing.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much.
I just wanted to ask you, because in your film and in your, like, as we saw you touch on a very personal topic with your family especially, and I just wanted to ask you, as a filmmaker, you always have a certain still like amount of distance to your subject, right?
Yeah,
And like
very far away.
yeah.
Yes.
But but how did you maintain, especially for such a personal project as Dick Johnson Is Dead, with your father? How did you maintain certain distance to him while you were filming him, or how did you basically not go crazy during filming that? Because like I cannot imagine myself filming my family because it's such a different relationship immediately.
Right.
And I wanted to ask you, how did you manage to somehow differentiate those relationships, and how did you manage it?
Right. So the why you are asking the question of maintaining the distance is because you know you need some distance, right? I actually I didn't need that much distance from my dad. Sometimes I needed distance from my own feelings, which is why I made the whole movie. Clearly, I'm making a comedy. I was making a comedy for 3.5 years. So it was distance from my own feelings. I stayed very close to him emotionally, and he was into the project, right? Do you want to sit down? Right? Yeah. Can we be more comfortable, right?
Yeah, immediately. Yeah.
Right? Immediately more comfortable. You feel better, right?
It feels more natural.
Yeah, it's more natural, and we're still talking to each other. And actually we're talking to each other in a different way. So if you have a difficult situation with people that you're trying to address in a film, if you come up to them and say, tell me when you committed that crime, right? That's a different thing than like, what do you want to have for dinner, right? But sometimes you only have a half an hour with a person who was a perpetrator of violence in a genocide. Are you going to ask them about dinner? Are you going to ask them about what they did? What are you going to do with that time that you have? And this is true of sort of all the people in our lives. We don't know how much time we have with them, right? Literally, we don't know. One of us walks out of here. One of us is going to die first in this room. We don't know who, right? We don't know who. And so if you have something sort of an urgent need in relation to your family, how do you address that? Can cinema help you? That was the question I asked with my dad. Can cinema help me? Right? Not, can I make a documentary and sell it? I was literally did not think of myself as making a documentary. I was like begging cinema to keep my father alive and to help me laugh a little bit. That's what I was doing. And so I wasn't going to ruin my relationship with my brother. I wasn't going to ruin my relationship with my father, because I know those relationships matter the most to me and they are ongoing. I would rather turn in a lousy film and have all of you say like, well, she's not a very good filmmaker. If I can have both, if I get to keep the relationship with you and make a film that all the collaborators enjoy and people enjoy, hallelujah. But so it's like understanding your own priorities, right? So if you know it'll make you lose your mind if you get too close, then figure out, how can I get close and stay sane? How might I find a way to gain mental strength in relation to this situation? Maybe it's not going directly to the people who cannot meet your needs. I know a young filmmaker who is trans, and their father does not accept it. They have gone to their father. The father says, no, don't talk to me. And that's not yet possible. So that person is going out and connecting with lots of other trans people and talking to them about how they talk to their parents, and creating a mutual system of understanding and respect between them, and learning, how do people do it? How do people get over this divide that they have with their parents? And by doing that, creating a community, creating visibility, but then there's all these problems of visibility because nobody wants to be filmed, like, so it goes on and on, right? But you're clever, right? Look at that face you made. You are clever, right? And I say you're clever because you told me, you know that you need some distance. You're wise. You know how to take care of yourself. So you got to trust yourself when you have these thoughts or strong fears. Listen to them. He's like, what are you talking about? All right. Who else?
Yeah, just
Yeah. Oh, good.
It's
Love
like
it.
it's with the sorry.
No, it's perfect.
It's just like that. For example, when you even edit the material, right? Like you have such a strong emotional connection, and you need still to see, as a director, as the author of your movie, like this structure as a whole, and so on and so on. And it's just I was just interested how this is a process for you, especially with Dick Johnson, how it was as a process, especially after you've done.
Yeah, I mean, the process. So one thing that we said to ourselves, it remains always a process. It is still a process even now. I'm still making something with my father, and we're going to keep making it and breaking it at every step along the way as things change. And so I did not pretend to know what was going to happen. I don't know when my father's going to die. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. Right? I don't know what it looks like after someone dies. So I had imagined that I'm just, in every scene of the movie, we're going to kill him, and then he'll come back to life again. Every scene of the movie. Well, as soon as we started editing, we realized, oh, that's really boring. Everyone knows how every scene's going to end. But so it's, you need perspective. How do you get perspective? It's working with other people. So one of the things that we did is, I don't know how to make a funny movie. I have made serious movies. How do I make a funny movie? So the idea was, we went into the edit room early and we played with things, and then we realized, that's sort of funny. How could it be more funny? Could the sound help us? Do we go back and we shoot? Do we edit and then put it in a different position? So it was our favorite word was iterative, but iterative literally means back and forth. Shuttle back and forth between a person and an idea and a film. So my father always forgot that we were making a movie, always forgot he'd seen it before. So he liked to watch whatever we'd done. So he was like the perfect fresh eyes, and he would watch a scene and he wouldn't laugh. And we'd be like, okay, it's still not funny. So that how we, the scene where he's at the bottom of the stairs, we got to adding blood and breaking his leg further and further until he laughed. Right? He didn't laugh for a year and a half at that shot. And no one else did. People were like, ha ha, right? But when my father laughed, we're like, we actually have a laugh. But some things were impossible to get. We kept trying to make something funny, and it was like, it's not funny. Right? So that thing of, the other thing that I did on the first shoot at the funeral with a crew that I didn't know, I pretended to know how to do things. I pretended to be a director. I pretended let's do this shot and let's do that shot. And as it was happening, I realized my father's dementia was worse than I thought it was. And then I was sort of covering this ground of like, oh my goodness, this crew doesn't understand what I'm doing, and I have to hide from them how much dementia my dad has, and I don't really know what shot to do. And then I was like, what was that about? What was I trying to prove? That I know what to do in a situation like this? Who is that for? That's for my ego. I've actually hired these people to work with me. Why don't I find something out from the people I'm working with about what they know about dementia? So on the next shoot, I literally spoke to a crew of 65 people. I asked every person if they knew or loved someone who had dementia. The bad news is everybody knew and loved someone who'd had dementia. Like how many people in this room, right? Like so many people have experience with dementia. And all of a sudden, I didn't have to protect them from the horror of it. They were quite familiar with it and had compassion for my father and for me. And all of a sudden, I could relax and feel safe. No one's going to let my father walk into traffic because everyone understands what dementia means. But when I was pretending to know and not asking anyone any questions, I was just protecting my own ego. So like, embrace not knowing much. It's the way to go, because then you can discover things with the people you're making the film with, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm enjoying sitting down. Anybody else have a sitting question over here? How we doing? Time? Is it on our side?
It's on your side, actually.
It's ticking away. Time.
You still have 20 minutes.
Woo! Oh, she wants to know what my necklace is made of. My necklace is made of recycled spray bottle tops. Yes.
Hey, Kristen. Good to see you again. I met you at Stanford with in Jamie's class. Pleasure to be here. And, you know, as a cinematographer, I find that. Oh, 1 second.
Are you the writer?
Oh, she's a great filmmaker as well, and that's the great philosopher. Yeah, I just think you have a way of being totally authentically yourself. And as a young-ish cinematographer, I still find every day it's a challenge to be yourself and make the images and get the grants and get the awards and believe in the story so much so that you just embody it as your own defeat. I must be broken. So I applaud you and I envy you, and I know that it's not easy, and I just would love for you to talk about how each day I feel like it's a practice that you embody being yourself. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. Such a great question, right? And I love your honesty. It's like, I applaud you and I envy you. I want to be finished with making a hard film. I'm in the middle of making a really hard film. It's so hard. One of my students did a studio art show at Brown, and she pulled 5 all-nighters. And then she wanted me to critique her show. And I was just like, oh, you know, she was there like pale, hadn't slept. And at a certain point, she just blurted out, "Art is so hard." And I was like, yeah, it is. It really is. And you should go to bed. Right? Like, so that, I mean, I think on a certain level, just like what we're all trying to do is like, it's not just like life. We're doing life plus. We're trying to do life and then make meaning of it that will matter to other people. And there's no financial ecosystem for it, and people's time has no value. Easy, right? So I mean, I think of the many things I would say is like, I have arrived at this moment where it appears to you that I am comfortable and it's easy. There are so many things that you can't see about me that are hard for me, right? But I'm kind of okay with the difficulty, right? As opposed to feeling resentful. Why is this so difficult? Turns out like life is outrageously difficult for each one of us. At some point, life will be outrageously difficult. For some people, unfortunately, it's like that from the beginning and it stays that forever. Some of us get a pass late into life and then it'll get difficult, right? Everyone's like, oh, I'm going to have it easy. I'm going to die at peace with my children around me, right? Like, yeah, good luck with that. So I mean, just acknowledging that it's hard, I think is useful. And then I think the other thing that we all do is we are so aware of other people's difficulty and suffering that it's very hard to acknowledge any of it that is our own. And that's sort of why I tried to make this pack of cards. It's like, you have a card. You have a card about your hope for love. You have a card about your own health. You have a card, like if you were to make a pack of cards for yourself, allow envy and admiration and kindness to yourself and push yourself harder. Like, let all of those things coexist, right? And the trusting yourself of, you are finding your own way, but it's also bigger than you. All this stuff is bigger than any one of us. We're all here and we could walk outside and the world could be radically changed, right? We're fairly powerless in this game. And the fact of being filmmakers or being artists, we can imagine worlds. And we actually do it sometimes. But that world only lasts for an hour and a half, right? And my dad is still alive with his dementia. And a lady in my building came up to me the other day and she said, I've spent 40 years sitting in an uncomfortable chair. I went out and I bought that chair that your dad sits in. And she said, it changed my life. Right? Now that's an expensive chair. She felt guilty about it. I told her, my dad has had that chair for 50 years. It hasn't broken yet. If you multiply that, right? So she did that. She felt great about it and she felt guilty about it. Right? And you just gotta, that is the world we are in, people. So if you feel guilty about everything you're doing, I don't know, maybe switch it up a little bit, right? If you realize you're putting a tremendous amount of effort into other people's lives, maybe take care of yourself a little bit more. So it's just like trying to, and you can't have all of the balance at all the same time, right? This is out of balance. I'm talking too much. And yet I know we only have 15 minutes. She wants to talk.
You're talking about your students' projects. What are yours?
Yeah. What is mine, right? I have a project that is basically about this set of questions about camera people of the 21st century. Like, what is happening to us? Because the thing that can we make my thing come up again? The thing that I thought was so cool, 10 years ago, was we're going to have an explosion of subjective languages. We're going to have tons of cinema language, right? Turns out it doesn't feel like that's happening, right? Because there's gatekeepers. People still need money to make things, to make their own cinematic vision. My password again. Oh, there we go. Are we up? Yep. So I'm just giving you some random joy. That's my son. But let me get, so, one of the things that's happening in the world is that, it's good stuff, right? One of the things that's happening in the world is machines are starting to film us, right? So surveillance cameras are filming us, drones are filming us, and much of the entertainment that is being produced, so the big superhero movies, the big, franchise movies for studios, increasingly they're filming things without bodies, without physical space, and without camera operators. We're headed into a world of virtual production. So, and it's very expensive. But if you look at like a Mandalorian TV series, nothing is real except for one human body, and you can't even see his head, right? And so I'm increasingly aware sort of the machines are coming for us. So they're coming for us in the forms of the algorithms, right? So I slipped through a little slipstream, and Netflix paid me to make Dick Johnson is Dead. But what the algorithm of Netflix wants does not want to keep track of, I'm Kirsten Johnson and I have a body of films. You can't search my name, right? So that film can just disappear there because there's no other way of knowing what it is. So that for me to come back to them and say, I want to make this really political film about camera people and what's happening in the 21st century, they're like, the algorithm's like, no, thank you. I don't want to talk about surveillance capitalism. You did a great job on that film. But there's no, the system isn't set up to support certain kinds of inquiry. And the machines are going to block us out increasingly. So what are we doing with that is the question. Yeah, just some of the images that come to mind. Just flying through. Unbroken Eye Contact, the musical. All right, I'm going to drink some water. But so that's one project that I'm doing. I'm also, I've been asked to do a project about Susan Sontag, a hybrid fictional and documentary project. I don't know if I can do it. I'm going to try to make a funny film about Susan Sontag. Good luck to me. Right? The other cool thing that I've been asked to submit an idea for a screen at the LAX airport. I'll have 30 seconds. What image can I make? They said you can't make anything political, right? So, okay, what is that leap of imagination? What would be worth doing with 30 seconds where people rent their cars at LAX? Something, right? How do you get to that place? I don't know. Great book. Yeah. We have like 10 minutes. Is that what we have?
Yeah, that's what we have.
Okay, we got 10 minutes. All right. So now it's high stakes game. Time's run out. Is there anyone who needs to ask a question? You're like, I can talk to you later. It's been a long time. I got to go to the bathroom. I need some coffee.
The lake.
And the lake. Who's going swimming today? Yes. There are 4 of us going swimming. Fantastic. Yeah, we're in it. We're in history. We're in this moment. And so this is the challenge, right, of us as humans, where we're like working on projects for a really long time and then history does something. Do we all need to run off in a different direction, or do we stay on our track? How do you make those kinds of choices? I think that's what we're all faced with in these moments. So, I would say one of the issues and realizations for me, having done this for 40 years, is you know what you're interested in. It will be relevant 20 years from now, turns out. It will have a different form, but it will continue to be relevant. So just keep sort of trusting yourself. Look at that cutie. Yeah. So, it's like, how do visual ideas give you ideas? Right? We talk to each other through images across time, right? This, the unerring eye that reads the church manual, always watched, always watching. Yeah, just we're gonna fade out on some color. Hey, that's the shirt I'm wearing. That's my son. Once again, you getting his sense of humor? This is this amazing illustration that someone made for Dick Johnson is Dead. So this is us filming. My dad in a casket. My dad in heaven. Jesus with the lamb. This was this amazing thing where I thought I had picked the most sort of recognizable people to be in heaven. I was like Farrah Fawcett, Frederick Douglass, Frida Kahlo, Freud, Buster Keaton, Bruce Lee. For me, these are all like artists who transformed their pain into some form of joy for all of us. And several young 20-year-old production assistants came onto set and they were like, who are all those people? For real. So this is my next project, Camera People of the 21st Century. And here we are in the present. I think that's a wrap. Yeah. You've all been very good. Now you can go be very bad.
And this is not over actually, because you're here until Saturday.
I'm here.
You're here. You're at the
I'm
festival.
a body. I'm a person. You can come swimming with me. All these things are true.
And
at the lake. Yeah.
maybe at the I don't know, Plage de Nuit, anywhere on the where there's water.
Yeah.
Where did you go
Yeah.
yesterday?
Yeah. Wait, she wants to know when. Oh, where? I went right in front here. At that little beach, that little rocky beach.
We can go now. And at 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
The Above and Camera Person are playing at Théâtre de Marron.
Yeah, if you want a really heavy dose of Kirsten Johnson today. But I'm not in Camera Person at all. You won't hardly hear my voice. So
You'll be
that
here
might
to
work
present
out.
the film today.
Yeah. Right on.
Thank you so much for coming.